Future Redeemed released back in early 2023, and for some reason it was one of those games / DLCs that I beat, but just for some reason never bothered going back to 100%. So with the announcement of the Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, I decided it was finally time for me to revisit Future Redeemed and go for 100% completion. The first thing I had to figure out was what I was actually going to do first. I eventually decided to fight some fish to get used to the combat system again. I defeated them way too quickly to mess around with the combat, but there are some bosses coming up soon which will give me a bit more of a chance to practice battling again. What you may have noticed is that the fish enemy has a little yellow symbol above its head, which means that I haven't completed its entry in the Enemypedia yet. Think of it kinda like the Pokedex, but instead of catching, you, well, murder. As I was just wandering around, I fought any yellow marked enemies I encountered to try and get them completed. A big part of the game you've got to 100% complete is the community. If you've played the Torna expansion for Xenoblade 2, you'll definitely recognise this. It's basically just a list of all the different people that you help while completing things like side quests. You'll know when you'll have completed the character by them having a little gold ring around their portrait. I actually had quite a few of them almost done, I just hadn't talked to them to get them completed. The main reward for completing these are affinity points, which can be used to upgrade stuff like arts and skills. After having a look at my list of side quests, I decided to have a go at fixing the derelict ether furnace. This is one of the quests I remembered not completing when I first played through the game. It basically just requires you to explore the world and find specific items. None of the ones I needed were too rare, and while I was looking around, I fought some higher leveled enemies. Fighting this tenebrous Murusama made me remember just how good the combat is in this game. Now usually with JRPGs I prefer turn-based combat, but there's just something about this that's just so satisfying to me. It's also really chaotic as well, with everybody just shouting their moves they're about to do. And I guess it also helps that the music is great as well. While I was searching around for some parts of the ether furnace, I was finding containers, secret areas, and also rescuing some of the people who will join the community. Doing all of this goes towards an area completion percentage, and it's pretty easy to complete this, especially because of the question marks on the map that appear when you fix the ether masts. Eventually I found enough of the parts to complete the ether furnace, and after doing that, I could craft gems up to level 5. For 100% completion, I'm going to have to get max level gems, and it will require a little bit of material grinding, but it is nowhere near as bad as the base game's gems which go up to level 10, which of course I was stupid enough to do. Anyway, after that I did a quest for Panacea that had me do a little quiz where, yeah, I mean I definitely didn't look up the answers. Cut me a bit of freaking slack, okay? It's been like a year and a half since I played a Xenoblade game, and then all I did after that was really just clean up and finish the open world. There being question marks everywhere really helps, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of relaxing to just wander around and get the maps completed. There was one thing stopping me from getting it all done though. You see, some of these bosses are, well, very high leveled, and at this point I was only at a measly level 56. I looked up a couple of methods which involved the cooking feature to give me an XP boost, and while this did kinda work, I did get to level 63. I just decided to do it a bit later on when there wasn't a lot left to do. As I was exploring, I was picking up loads of little items off the floor. These materials have a bunch of uses, like the gems I mentioned earlier, as well as completing the Collectopedia. For each area there are a certain amount of these items I had to collect and hand in. I had a good amount of these that I could have submitted, but I thought it was best to save them for a little bit, just in case I needed to upgrade anything a bit more important. Apart from some of the unique monsters, I managed to complete everything else in the overworld, like the fog rifts and finding relics. Occasionally I found art, accessory, and gem unlock kits, which are really useful upgrades. There are also affinity unlock kits, which is why I spend all of the affinity points I get from basically doing anything in the game. I'm not gonna lie, I had to do some pretty crazy parkour to get some of these. I had a bunch of these points that I hadn't used yet, so I spent a little bit of time spending them all. While I was exploring though, something kinda scary happened. I decided to fast travel back to Colony 9, and I'm not even kidding, it took about 35 seconds to load. I wasn't that bothered having to wait, but I was dreading the switch error screen, because I had no idea when I last saved. Thankfully it loaded though, and the first thing I did was save. When I had almost completed all of the areas, I turned my attention back to levelling up. I decided to try the method I was using before again. All I had to do was cook a dish that boosts XP gain, level myself down to 50, and fight the fog trawler tool stuff. If I did this over and over, I would eventually get to level 99. To make this a bit easier for myself, I upgraded my weapons a bit, and I'm not gonna lie, I kinda wish I did this earlier. Once I got all of my ingredients ready, and my characters equipped with the right gems and accessories, I started the level grind. The main goal while fighting it was to get into a chain attack just before it died. When an enemy is defeated while a chain attack is ongoing, you get an XP bonus, and I got it as high as 700% sometimes for burst combo. Although, thinking about it, I shouldn't have used Rex and Glimmer. Rex and Matthew would have done a lot more damage, so if you're gonna do this, then I'd try them. As I got more and more XP, the level slowed down a bit, but it didn't take long at all to get to level 99. When I first got to the max level, I was confident. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go take down all of the bosses that I couldn't before. And I mean, I defeated a few of them, but then I fought the slow and bloody steadies. These guys are the absolute worst. Little did I know that like the second or third boss I fought was the hardest and most annoying one in the game. You see, you can't just fight one of them, as they both target you, and then if you defeat one, the other does some sort of insta-kill attack on the entire party. I was able to defeat one of them and then die and then take down the other, so technically they were both registered in the Enemypedia, but the boss symbol was still on the map and I wanted to do it properly. I gave it a couple more tries trying different strategies and changing my unity combos, but I just couldn't do it. I still had a lot of weapon upgrades left to do though, and also gems to craft, so I decided to leave it for later on once I was a bit more powerful. The weapon upgrades were what I focused on next. I had all of the blade stones I needed from exploring, so I just needed the monster parts, which weren't too difficult to get. Some of them were actually a lot easier to get than I thought they were going to be. The last upgrade required silver Ravine bones. You get these by defeating the thunderfish Duna Roa under the Ragwall Bridge. What are these names? It has to be during a thunderstorm though, which thankfully you can easily select from the fast travel menu. My first fight with it was actually pretty tough. It does a really annoying attack that almost paralyses you and it takes ages for the party to recover. I also got pretty unlucky with the chain attacks, as I needed Rex and Glimmer to appear, and of course one of them just wouldn't turn up, because it's all just RNG. After defeating it once, I got the first 2 bones, which I used to upgrade Rex and Matthew's weapons. My second fight with it went way better, and it didn't take nearly as long. I got a burst attack during the chain attack, and I ended up getting 6 of the bones during one fight. I could now nearly fully upgrade my weapons. I just needed 2 more mysterious fragments. They're found in the overworld, so I just looked up where they were, and did a bit of trial and error to find them. To make things a little bit easier for myself, I fully upgraded the X reader to give me arts analysis, and most importantly, to detect key items like the mysterious fragments. I found my final mysterious fragment not long after that, and finally finished upgrading my weapons. The next thing I did was get the last containers and relics that were on my map. As I'm not gonna lie, that was kinda bothering me. I couldn't tell where they were at first, but after fixing the last ether mast, it showed me on the map where they all were. Doing all of that got me my last gem unlock kits, so it was finally time for me to start the level 5 gem grind, which I was absolutely hyped for. I had a few done already, so that gave me a bit of a head start, but there was still quite a few to do. Luckily though, I only needed a few materials from each of them. At first I was going to write down all of the materials and the locations of the enemies that dropped them, but then I found out that if you pin the items you need and go into the Enemypedia, it actually shows you which enemies drops the items that you need to craft the gem. This was honestly such a lifesaver, but the only bad thing was that it doesn't show where the enemy actually is. To be fair, it shows you which region it's in, so that does help narrow its location down, but still it would have been kinda useful to know exactly on the map where the enemy is. Some of these were easier to get than others, and while I was doing this, I found a couple of new enemies to fill out my Enemypedia. I started with upgrading the blue gems, and made my way to the yellow ones. Looking back, I really should have cooked some of the meals that boost the drop rate of items from enemies. If you're thinking of maybe doing this, then I would definitely recommend that. All in all, it only took a few hours, and honestly, I'm so glad these gems didn't go up to level 10. Now that I had all of the gems done, I felt pretty happy spending my materials and filling out the collection page. There's a page of items for each area, and I was only missing like 2 or 3 items in total to fully 100% complete it. It seems like as long as you're kind of obsessed like I was picking up items off the floor, it isn't too bad to complete. The next thing I did was complete the Enemypedia. Again, I had most of it done, like 80% or something, so there was only a few enemies I needed to defeat. Most of these were pretty easy to find. Some of them did require certain weather types though, like lightning or snow for these little Pepito critters. The different versions of these ones made up a lot of the enemies that I was missing. While I was doing this, I fought the Fog Dweller Abassi. I guess that's how you say it? Anyway, this guy was so annoying to fight. Like, he kept putting down these damage in fields, and they were affecting my party even in a chain attack. Once I changed my unity combo to Matthew and Rex slow, I managed to beat it. The only boss left to defeat now was the slow and steadies. Once I'd found my last enemies for the Enemypedia, I went around and completed the community, which was basically just me walking around talking to Nopons and random people. And I also did my final side quest, where I had to get the community together to fix this machine. After that was completed, it was almost time for my rematch with the slow and steadies. But first, I wanted to get the last art and affinity unlocked to fully complete my affinity pages. The key item sensor on the X reader really helps here, but it's still pretty tricky to find the exact item you're missing. I mainly used a couple of old Reddit threads to find the ones I was missing, and thankfully, the first few I tried were the right ones. Shulk was my final character to complete, so I used my last art unlock kit and spent the rest of my affinity points. Now I had 100% completed the affinity page, it's finally time to return to my good old friends, the slow and steadies. These guys had no idea what was about to happen to them. Rex and Matthew are just absolutely crazy together. I made sure not to get hit by the insta-kill move, and defeated both of them in one go this time. To be honest, I don't think doing this even did anything, apart from complete my map. But I'm glad I got it done though. And that's Future Redeems 100%. I really enjoyed completing this, and I'm glad I got it done before the X remaster. I do kinda wish there was a bit more of a reward for doing it though. Also, if you're curious, this took me about 40 hours to complete. Anyway, thank you for watching. Definitely make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.